The ballroom glittered like a sky full of fallen stars. Chandeliers dripped with crystal tears that caught the candlelight and scattered it across marble floors. Women in silk gowns swirled past like living paintings. Men in tailcoats stood in clusters, their laughter low and confident. But Serafina felt none of the magic. She stood near the wide French doors, her gloved hands clasped tight in front of her waist. Her dress was beautiful, pale blue with silver threading along the bodice, but it was borrowed. The shoes pinched her toes. The necklace around her throat was glass, not diamonds. She did not belong here. Her cousin, Lady Harriet, had insisted she come. "You cannot hide forever, Serafina," Harriet had said, her voice soft but firm. "It has been 2 years since the scandal. You deserve to live again." Serafina was not sure she agreed. She glanced across the room and froze. There he was, Lord Percival Ashton, her former fiancé. He stood near the refreshment table, his golden hair perfectly combed, his smile wide and charming. A beautiful woman clung to his arm, Miss Evangeline Hartley, the daughter of a duke. Percival looked exactly as he always had, confident, polished, untouchable. Serafina's stomach twisted. She had loved him once, believed him when he said he would marry her, trusted him when he promised her father he would care for her after the wedding. Then her father died, and Percival disappeared. He broke their engagement 3 days after the funeral. He said her family had no money left, no title, no value. He said he could not afford to marry a penniless woman. He said it kindly, as if his cruelty were a favor. Serafina had fallen apart in silence. Now, 2 years later, she was a companion to her cousin. She lived in a small room in Harriet's townhouse. She mended clothes, arranged flowers, and tried to pretend she did not feel invisible. She turned toward the doors, ready to slip outside into the garden where no one would see her. But before she could move, a voice called out across the room. "Serafina, is that you?" Her blood turned to ice. She turned slowly. Percival was walking toward her, his smile bright and false. Evangeline followed a step behind, her lips pressed into a thin line. Serafina's heart pounded. She wanted to run, but her feet would not move. Percival stopped in front of her, his eyes sweeping over her dress with barely hidden judgment. "It is you," he said, tilting his head. "I hardly recognized you. You look different." She forced herself to meet his gaze. "I am well, Lord Ashton. Thank you for asking." His smile widened. "Still so formal. You needn't be. We were once engaged, after all." Her throat tightened. She said nothing. Evangeline stepped forward, her eyes cold. "Percival, darling, who is this?" "An old friend," Percival said smoothly. "Miss Serafina Claremont. We were close once, before her family lost everything." The words hit like a slap. Serafina felt her cheeks burn. Around them, a few guests turned to look. Whispers started, soft and sharp. Percival leaned closer, his voice dropping to a mocking whisper. "Tell me, Serafina, have you found another gentleman willing to marry you? Or are you still alone?" She swallowed hard. Her hands trembled. She hated that he could still hurt her. Before she could answer, the ballroom doors opened. A man stepped inside. He was tall, dressed in plain dark clothing, black trousers, a simple white shirt, a coat that looked well worn. His hair was black and slightly too long, falling across his forehead. His face was sharp and serious, his jaw shadowed with stubble. His eyes, dark blue, almost gray, swept the room with quiet intensity. He looked nothing like the other men here. No medals, no embroidery, no polish. He looked like a servant. Serafina watched as he walked across the room, his steps sure and steady. He did not look at anyone. He moved like a man who knew exactly where he belonged, even though everything about him said he did not. He stopped a few feet away from her. and then he looked directly at her. Her breath caught. His gaze was steady, unreadable, but something in it felt familiar, safe. He stepped closer. "Forgive me for being late," he said quietly. His voice was deep, calm, and edged with something she could not name. Serafina blinked. What?" He moved to stand beside her, close enough that his shoulder nearly brushed hers. "I apologize for keeping you waiting," he said again, his tone soft but clear. Her mind spun. She did not know this man. She had never seen him before. But he was acting as though he knew her. Percival's eyes narrowed. He looked the man up and down, his lip curling. "And who exactly are you?" The man did not flinch. He met Percival's gaze without hesitation. "I am with Miss Claremont." Percival laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound that cut through the low hum of conversation around them. Several people turned to look. "With her?" Percival repeated, his voice loud enough to draw more attention. He looked at Serafina, his eyes bright with cruel amusement. "Serafina, is this your husband?" Her face went hot. Her throat closed. Evangeline gasped softly, covering her mouth with her gloved hand. Her eyes gleamed with delight. "He looks like a stable hand," Percival continued, his grin widening. "Did you marry a servant, Serafina? Is this what you have been reduced to?" Laughter rippled through the nearby guests. Serafina felt the weight of every stare. Her chest tightened. She wanted to disappear. But the man beside her did not move. He stood perfectly still, his expression calm and unreadable. Then, slowly, he turned his head to look at Percival. "Yes," he said quietly, "I am her husband." The room seemed to tilt. Serafina's heart stopped. She stared at him, her lips parted in shock. What was he doing? Percival's smile faltered for just a moment. Then he laughed again, louder this time. "Her husband! Oh, this is too rich. Serafina Claremont married to a servant. How the mighty have fallen." The man's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "You seem very interested in my wife's life, Lord Ashton. I wonder why." Percival's smile twisted. "I simply find it amusing. She was once engaged to me, you know. I ended it, of course. She had nothing to offer." "Clearly you did not value what she had." The words were soft, but they landed like a blade. Percival's face flushed red. "You dare!" "I dare," the man interrupted calmly, "because unlike you, I do not find pleasure in humiliating others in public." Silence fell. Serafina's pulse roared in her ears. She did not understand what was happening, but something in the man's voice, something quiet and unmovable, made her feel less alone. Percival opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, an older gentleman approached from across the room. He wore a military uniform covered in medals, his white hair swept back from a stern, weathered face. "Your Grace," the man said, bowing slightly to the man beside Serafina. "Forgive the interruption. The Duke of Wellington wishes to speak with you." The air left the room. Serafina felt the world stop turning. "Your Grace." Duke. She turned slowly to look at the man beside her. He did not look surprised. He simply nodded once to the older gentleman. "Tell him I will join him shortly." The gentleman bowed again and walked away. Percival stood frozen, his face pale as snow. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Evangeline's hand fell from his arm. Whispers exploded across the ballroom like wildfire. "That is the Duke of Edinburgh. Thought he was in Scotland. Never attends balls. Wearing servants' clothes." Serafina's knees felt weak. She could not breathe. She stared at the man, no, the Duke, beside her. He turned to face her fully. His expression softened just slightly. "Forgive me," he said quietly. "I did not mean to lie. but I could not stand by and let him humiliate you." Her voice came out as a whisper. "You are the Duke of Edinburgh." "I am." "But you... why did you—" "Because," he said simply, "you needed help, and I was here." She did not know what to say. Her thoughts were a storm. Percival finally found his voice. "Your Grace, I did not realize." The Duke turned his head toward Percival. His gaze was ice. "You did not realize," he said quietly, "that cruelty is still cruelty, no matter who witnesses it." Percival flinched. "I meant no disrespect." "You meant to hurt her. You succeeded, but you also revealed your character." The Duke's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. "I suggest you leave before you embarrass yourself further." Percival's face crumbled. He looked around, desperate, but no one would meet his eyes. He turned and walked quickly toward the doors, Evangeline hurrying after him. The room remained silent. Seraphina stood frozen, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The Duke looked down at her. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes, something warm and steady, made her feel safe. "Would you like to leave?" he asked softly. She nodded, unable to speak. He offered her his arm. She hesitated for only a moment. Then she took it. Together, they walked through the ballroom, past the staring guests, and out into the cool night air. And Seraphina knew, with absolute certainty, that her life had just changed forever. But she did not yet know how. The garden was quiet. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting soft pools of golden light across the gravel paths. The sound of music and laughter from the ballroom drifted faintly through the open doors. But here, beneath the stars, the world felt distant. Seraphina stood near a stone fountain, her hands pressed against the cool edge. Her mind was spinning. She could not catch her breath. The Duke stood a few feet away, his hands clasped behind his back. He did not speak. He simply waited. Finally, she turned to face him. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice trembling. He met her gaze steadily. "Because it was the right thing to do." "You lied. You told him you were my husband." "I did." "Why?" He was silent for a moment. Then he stepped closer, his expression serious. "Because I saw the look on your face when he spoke to you. I saw the way he tried to break you in front of everyone, and I could not let it continue." Her throat tightened. "You do not even know me." "No," he agreed quietly. "But I know cruelty when I see it, and I know what it feels like to be powerless." She blinked, surprised. You are the Duke of Edinburgh. You have more power than anyone in this room." A faint, bitter smile touched his lips. "Power does not protect you from all wounds." Something in his voice, something raw and honest, made her chest ache. She looked down at her hands. "Everyone will talk about this. They will say I deceived them, that I claimed to be married to a duke." "Let them talk." "You do not understand. I have already lost everything. My reputation is all I have left." "Your reputation," he said gently, "is not worth protecting if it requires you to accept humiliation in silence." She looked up at him, startled. He held her gaze. "You did nothing wrong tonight. He did. And if anyone speaks poorly of you because I chose to defend you, then they are not worth your concern." Tears burned behind her eyes. She blinked them back. "Why do you care?" He hesitated. For the first time, she saw uncertainty flicker across his face. "Because," he said slowly, "I have spent the last 5 years trying to forget what it feels like to care about anyone. And tonight, when I saw you standing there, alone and hurting, I remembered." Her breath caught. He looked away, his jaw tight. "Forgive me. That was too much. No, she whispered. It was honest. He turned back to her, his eyes searching hers. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, quietly, he said, "May I ask you a question?" She nodded. "Why were you at the ball tonight? You did not seem happy to be there." She let out a shaky breath. "My cousin insisted I attend. She thought it would be good for me to rejoin society." "And has it been good for you?" "No." The word came out bitter. "It has reminded me of everything I lost." "What did you lose?" She looked at him, surprised by the directness of the question. But there was no judgment in his eyes, only quiet curiosity. "My father," she said softly. "He died 2 years ago. We had no money left. My fiancé, Lord Ashton, ended our engagement. I became a companion to my cousin. I am no one now." "You are not no one." "I am invisible. I see you." The words were so simple, so quiet, but they shattered something inside her. She turned away, blinking hard against the tears that threatened to fall. "You should not have intervened. You will regret it." "I do not think I will." "You do not know what you have started. People will expect." "I do not care what people expect." She laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You say that now, but when the gossip begins—" Serafina. Her name on his lips stopped her. She looked at him. He stepped closer, his expression serious. "I am not afraid of gossip. I have lived through worse. And if my actions tonight cause trouble, I will handle it. But I will not apologize for helping you." She stared at him, her heart pounding. "Who are you?" she whispered. His lips curved into the faintest smile. "I am Rowan Blackwood, Duke of Edinburgh, and, for tonight at least, your husband." Her breath hitched. "You cannot say things like that." "Why not?" Because it is not real." "Perhaps not," he said softly. "But it felt real, did it not?" She could not answer. He studied her for a moment longer. Then he took a step back, his expression shifting into something more formal. "I should return you to your cousin," he said quietly. "She will be worried." Serafina nodded, though her legs felt unsteady. He offered her his arm again. She took it. Together, they walked back toward the ballroom. But as they reached the doors, Rowan paused. "Serafina," he said softly. She looked up at him. "If you ever need help," he said, his voice serious, "you may send word to me. I mean that." Her throat tightened. "Why would you offer that?" "Because tonight proved that you have no one to protect you, and that is unacceptable." She did not know what to say. He bowed slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "Good night, Miss Claremont." "Good night, Your Grace." He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Serafina stood frozen, her hand still warm where his arm had been. She did not understand what had just happened, but she knew, deep in her bones, that everything had changed. 3 days later, the gossip reached her. Serafina sat in the small parlour of her cousin's townhouse, her hands folded in her lap. Harriet paced in front of the fireplace, her face flushed with anger. "They are saying you claim to be married to the Duke of Edinburgh," Harriet said, her voice tight. "They are saying you lied to make yourself seem important." Serafina's chest ached. "I did not claim anything. He said it, not me." "Then why did he say it?" Harriet demanded. "Why would the Duke of Edinburgh, one of the most powerful men in England, pretend to be your husband?" "I do not know," Serafina whispered. Harriet stopped pacing. She looked at Serafina, her eyes softening. "What happened that night?" Serafina told her everything. Percival's cruelty, Rowan's intervention, the way he had stood beside her, calm and unmovable, as if she mattered. When she finished, Harriet sat down heavily in the chair across from her. "He defended you," Harriet said slowly. "Yes." "And then he left." "Yes." Harriet frowned. "That is unusual." "I know. Do you think he meant what he said? About sending word if you need help?" Serafina shook her head. "I do not know. But it does not matter. I will not send word. I cannot." "Why not?" "Because I do not want to be a burden. I have been a burden long enough." Harriet reached across and took Serafina's hand. "You are not a burden, and if the Duke of Edinburgh offered his help, perhaps you should consider accepting it." "I barely know him." "But he knows cruelty when he sees it. He said so himself." Serafina looked down at their joined hands. "I do not want to owe him anything." "Perhaps," Harriet said gently, "he does not expect anything in return." Serafina did not answer, but later that night, as she lay in her small bed, staring up at the dark ceiling, she could not stop thinking about Rowan's words. "I see you." No one had said anything like that to her in 2 years. She closed her eyes and tried to push the memory away, but it clung to her like a shadow. A week passed. Serafina tried to return to her normal routine. She helped Harriet with correspondence. She arranged flowers. She read books in the small library and tried not to think about the ballroom. But the gossip did not stop. Everywhere Harriet went, people whispered. Some said Serafina was a liar. Others said the Duke had taken pity on her. A few even suggested something scandalous had happened between them. Harriet defended her fiercely, but Serafina could see the strain in her cousin's eyes. "You do not have to keep me here," Serafina said one morning as they sat together in the parlor. "If I am causing too much trouble—" "Stop," Harriet said firmly. "You are my family. I will not send you away because of gossip." "But—" "No." Harriet's voice softened. "You have done nothing wrong, Serafina. The Duke defended you. That is all. Anyone who says otherwise is cruel and small-minded." Serafina wanted to believe her, but the weight of shame sat heavy on her chest. That afternoon, a letter arrived. Harriet brought it to Serafina, her eyes wide. "It is addressed to you." Serafina frowned. No one sent her letters. She had no friends left outside of Harriet's circle. She took the envelope carefully. The paper was thick, expensive. The seal was dark blue wax, stamped with an unfamiliar crest. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal and unfolded the letter. The handwriting was neat, strong, and precise. "Miss Claremont, I hope this letter finds you well. I have heard the rumours circulating regarding the events at Lady Pembroke's ball. I write to assure you that I take full responsibility for any inconvenience or distress they may have caused you. I acted impulsively that night, and though I do not regret defending you, I recognize that my actions may have complicated your life. For that, I apologize. If you wish to meet and discuss how we might address the gossip, I would be happy to arrange a time. If you prefer not to respond, I will understand and respect your silence. Yours sincerely, Rowan Blackwood, Duke of Edinburgh." Serafina read the letter 3 times. Her heart pounded. Harriet leaned forward. "What does it say?" Serafina handed her the letter without a word. Harriet read it quickly, her eyes growing wider with each line. "He is offering to meet with you, to help." "I know." "Are you going to respond?" Serafina hesitated. "I do not know." "Serafina," Harriet's voice was gentle but firm. "This is the Duke of Edinburgh. He is offering to help you. You cannot ignore this." "I do not want to be a burden." "He does not see you as a burden. He sees you as someone worth defending." Serafina looked down at the letter, her throat tight. "What if I respond and he regrets it?" she whispered. "What if he realizes I am not worth the trouble?" Harriet knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Serafina, listen to me. You are worth the trouble. You are kind, intelligent, and brave. Anyone who cannot see that is blind. Tears stung Serafina's eyes. I do not feel brave. You survived 2 years of loss and humiliation. That is brave. Serafina swallowed hard. What do I say? Harriet smiled. Say yes. 2 days later, Serafina stood outside a tall, elegant townhouse in Mayfair. Her hands were shaking. She had sent a brief reply to Rowan's letter, agreeing to meet. He had responded within hours, offering his London residence as a neutral, private location. Now, standing on the steps, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Before she could turn and flee, the door opened. An older man in butler's livery bowed slightly. Miss Claremont? She nodded, her voice trapped in her throat. His Grace is expecting you. Please, follow me. She stepped inside. The entrance hall was grand but understated. Dark wood panelling, soft lighting, a staircase that curved upward like a bird's wing. Everything was elegant, but not ostentatious. It felt warm. The butler led her down a hallway and stopped in front of a closed door. He knocked once, then opened it. Miss Claremont, Your Grace. Serafina stepped inside. The room was a study. Bookshelves lined 2 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes. A large desk sat near the window, covered with papers and maps. A fire crackled softly in the hearth, and standing near the fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back, was Rowan. He turned when she entered. His expression was serious, but his eyes softened when they met hers. Miss Claremont, he said quietly. Thank you for coming. She curtsied, her heart racing. Your Grace. He gestured to a chair near the fire. Please, sit. She did, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Rowan sat across from her, his posture relaxed but attentive. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, I am sorry for the trouble I caused. She shook her head quickly. You did not cause it. Lord Ashton did. Perhaps, but I made it worse by claiming to be your husband. That was reckless. It was kind. He looked at her, surprised. You defended me when no one else would, she said softly. You made me feel seen. That is not reckless. That is generous. His jaw tightened. I do not feel generous. I feel angry. At me? At him. At the world that allowed him to treat you that way. Her breath caught. He looked away, his hands clenched on the arms of his chair. I have spent years trying not to care about things I cannot control, but when I saw you standing there, alone and hurting, I could not look away. Why? She whispered. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, Because I know what it feels like to be invisible. She stared at him. You? You are the Duke of Edinburgh. Everyone sees you. They see my title. They see my land, my money, my position. But they do not see me. His voice was quiet, almost hollow. I have been alone for a long time, he continued, and I have convinced myself that it does not matter, that I do not need anyone. He looked at her, his eyes dark and shadowed. But that night, when I saw you, I remembered what it felt like to want to protect someone, and I could not walk away. Serafina's chest ached. You barely know me. I know enough. You do not. Then tell me. She blinked. What? Tell me who you are, not who you were before your father died, not who Percival wanted you to be, who you are now. She did not know how to answer. No one had ever asked her that. She looked down at her hands. I do not know anymore. Then we will figure it out together. Her head snapped up. Together? He leaned forward, his gaze steady. The gossip will not stop, Serafina. Not unless we give them something else to talk about. What do you mean? He hesitated. Then he said slowly, I am proposing an arrangement. Her heart stopped. What kind of arrangement? A marriage. In name only. The world tilted. She stared at him, unable to breathe. You want to marry me? I want to protect you, and this is the only way I know how. But why would you do that? You do not owe me anything. No, he agreed, but I want to help you, and I think, perhaps, you could help me as well. How? He stood and walked to the window, his back to her. I am expected to marry, to produce an heir, but I have no interest in the kind of marriage society expects, one filled with pretense and performance. He turned to face her. If you agree, we would marry quietly. You would have the protection of my name and the security of my fortune. In return, I would have the appearance of fulfilling my duty. We would not have to love each other. We would simply coexist. Serafina could not think, could not breathe. This is insane, she whispered. Perhaps, but it would solve both of our problems. You do not have problems. You are a duke. I have more problems than you know. Something in his voice, something raw and wounded, made her believe him. She stood slowly, her legs unsteady. You are asking me to marry you, a man I have known for less than 2 weeks. Yes. Why? He crossed the room and stopped in front of her. His eyes were serious, searching. Because, he said quietly, I saw you, Serafina. I saw your pain, your strength, your grace, and I thought, perhaps we could both be less alone. Her eyes burned. This is not a fairy tale. No, but it is a chance. For both of us. She looked up at him, her heart racing. Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to run, to protect herself from more pain. But another part of her, the part that had felt invisible for 2 years, whispered something different. He sees you. She took a shaky breath. If I agree, she said slowly, what would you expect from me? Nothing you are not willing to give. This would be a partnership, not a prison. And if I want to leave? Then you leave. I will not hold you here. She studied his face, searching for lies. She found none. I need time to think, she whispered. He nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. She turned toward the door, her mind spinning. But before she reached it, his voice stopped her. Serafina. She looked back. He stood by the fireplace, his expression unreadable. Whatever you decide, he said softly, know that I meant what I said. You are not invisible. Not to me. Her breath caught. She nodded once, unable to speak. Then she left. And as she walked out into the cold afternoon air, she realized something terrifying. She wanted to say yes. That night, Serafina sat in her small room, staring at the letter Rowan had sent. Harriet had asked what happened at the meeting. Serafina had told her everything. Harriet had been silent for a long time. Then she said, "Do you trust him?" Serafina did not know how to answer. "I barely know him." "That is not what I asked." Serafina looked down at her hands. Yes, I think I do." "Then you have your answer." "It is not that simple." "Why not?" "Because what if I am wrong? What if he changes his mind? What if I agree and he realizes I am not worth the trouble?" Harriet crossed the room and sat beside her. "Serafina, you have been hiding for 2 years. You have been making yourself small, invisible, so that no one can hurt you again. But that is not living. That is surviving." Tears burned behind Serafina's eyes. "I do not know how to do anything else," Then let him teach you. Serafina looked at her cousin, startled. Harriet smiled gently. He is offering you a chance, not a fairy tale, not a promise of love, but a chance, and I think you should take it. What if I fail? What if you do not? Serafina closed her eyes. She thought about Rowan's words. I see you. You are not invisible. We could both be less alone. She thought about the way he had stood beside her at the ball, calm and unshakable. She thought about the way he had looked at her in his study, serious and honest. And she thought about the life she had been living, small, quiet, safe, empty. She opened her eyes. I am going to say yes, she whispered. Harriet squeezed her hand. Good. The wedding was small. No grand ceremony, no crowd of guests, just a quiet chapel, a priest, and a handful of witnesses. Serafina wore a simple white dress that Harriet had helped her find. Her hands shook as she stood at the altar. Rowan stood beside her, dressed in a dark coat and cravat. His expression was calm, but she saw the tension in his jaw. The priest spoke the words. Rowan repeated them, his voice steady. Serafina repeated them, her voice barely above a whisper. And then it was done. She was the Duchess of Edinburgh. Rowan took her hand and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. Thank you, he said quietly. She did not know what to say. They left the chapel together. A carriage waited outside, black and unmarked. Rowan helped her inside, then climbed in after her. As the carriage rolled forward, Serafina stared out the window, her heart pounding. Are you afraid? Rowan asked softly. She looked at him. Yes. So am I. She blinked, surprised. You are? He nodded. I have not had anyone rely on me in a long time. I am afraid I will fail you. Her chest ached. I am afraid I will fail you. He smiled faintly. Then we are even. She laughed, a soft, broken sound. He reached across and took her hand. She did not pull away. We will figure this out, he said quietly. Together. She looked down at their joined hands, and for the first time in 2 years, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Rowan's estate was nothing like Serafina expected. She had imagined something cold and grand, a palace filled with marble and gold. But when the carriage rolled through the gates, she saw rolling green hills, ancient oak trees, and a manor house built from warm gray stone. Ivy climbed the walls. Flowers grew in wild clusters around the entrance. It looked like a home. Rowan helped her down from the carriage. Welcome to Blackwood Hall. She stared up at the house, her throat tight. It is beautiful. It is yours now. She looked at him, startled. He smiled faintly. You are the Duchess. Everything here belongs to you as much as it belongs to me. She did not know what to say. He led her inside. The staff greeted them quietly. An older housekeeper named Mrs. Davies, a butler named Thomas, a handful of maids and footmen. They all bowed and curtsied, their faces polite but curious. Rowan introduced her simply. This is my wife, Her Grace, the Duchess of Edinburgh. Serafina's cheeks burned. The title felt too large, but no one questioned it. Mrs. Davies showed her to her rooms, a suite on the second floor with tall windows that overlooked the gardens. The walls were pale blue. The furniture was elegant but comfortable. A fire crackled in the hearth. If you need anything, Your Grace, please ring, Mrs. Davies said kindly. Serafina nodded, her voice caught in her throat. When the housekeeper left, Serafina stood in the center of the room, overwhelmed. This was her life now. A knock sounded at the door. Come in, she called softly. Rowan stepped inside. He looked uncertain, as if he were not sure he was allowed to enter. "I wanted to make sure you were comfortable," he said. She nodded. "I am. Thank you." He hesitated. "Serafina, I know this is strange. I do not expect you to adjust immediately." "I do not know what you expect at all," she admitted. He crossed the room slowly and stopped a few feet away. "I expect nothing. I want you to feel safe here, to feel free." "Free?" "To be yourself, to do what you wish. This is your home now, not a cage." Her eyes stung. "Why are you being so kind to me?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because," he said quietly, "I know what it feels like to be trapped, and I will not do that to you." She did not understand, but she did not press. He stepped back toward the door. "I will leave you to rest. If you need me, my rooms are at the end of the hall." "Rowan." He stopped, turning back. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once. Then he left. Serafina sat down on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. She did not know what kind of marriage this would be, but for the first time in 2 years, she felt like she had a future. The first week passed quietly. Serafina spent her days exploring the house, walking through the gardens, and learning the rhythms of the estate. The staff were kind but kept their distance, uncertain how to treat her. Rowan was polite but distant. He took his meals with her, asked about her day, and made sure she had everything she needed. But he did not touch her, did not ask anything of her. It was exactly as he had promised, a marriage in name only. And yet, Serafina found herself lonely. She had thought she wanted distance, safety, protection. But now, sitting across from Rowan at dinner each night, watching him read quietly in the library, she realized something unexpected. She wanted to know him. One evening, as they sat together in the drawing room, she finally gathered the courage to speak. "Rowan?" He looked up from his book. "Yes?" "Why did you agree to this? Truly." He closed the book slowly, his expression unreadable. "I told you, I needed to marry, and you needed protection. But there are dozens of women who would have married you, women with titles, wealth, connections. Why me?" He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Because you were the only one who did not want something from me." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "Every woman I have ever met has wanted my title, my money, or my influence. They have looked at me and seen what I could give them." He met her gaze. "But you looked at me and saw a stranger who offered help. You did not ask for anything. You did not expect anything. You were simply honest." Her breath caught. "I have been surrounded by people who want things from me for my entire life," he continued. "And I am tired, Serafina. I am tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of being alone in a room full of people." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. She stood and crossed the room, sitting down beside him. "You are not alone now," she said softly. He looked at her, his eyes dark and filled with something she could not name. "Neither are you," he whispered. For a long moment they simply looked at each other. Then Rowan reached out and took her hand. His touch was warm, careful, tentative. She did not pull away. "I know this is not the marriage you dreamed of," he said quietly. "But I will try to be a good husband to you, in whatever way you need." "And I will try to be a good wife," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I think you already are." Something in her chest loosened. For the first time since the wedding, she felt like she could breathe. 2 weeks later, Percival arrived. Serafina was in the garden when Thomas came to find her. "Your Grace," he said, his voice tight. "Lord Percival Ashton is here. He is demanding to see you." Her blood turned to ice. "He is here?" she whispered. Yes, Your Grace. His Grace asked that I inform you before allowing him entry. Seraphina's hands trembled. Where is Rowan? In his study, Your Grace. She stood quickly, her heart racing. Take me to him. Thomas led her through the house and knocked on the study door. Rowan opened it immediately. His eyes swept over her face, sharp and assessing. What is wrong? Percival is here. His expression darkened. Why? I do not know. He stepped past her, his jaw tight. Stay here. No, she grabbed his arm. I want to face him. He looked down at her, his eyes fierce. You do not have to. I know, but I want to. He studied her for a moment, then he nodded. Together, then. They walked to the entrance hall together. Percival stood near the door, his face flushed and angry. He looked thinner than she remembered, his eyes shadowed. When he saw them, his expression twisted. So it is true, he said, his voice sharp. You married him. Seraphina lifted her chin. Yes. Percival laughed bitterly. You moved on quickly. I suppose I should not be surprised. You ended our engagement, she said quietly. You have no right to be angry. I have every right, he snapped. You humiliated me. You made me look like a fool in front of everyone. You did that yourself, Rowan said coldly. Percival's eyes flashed. Stay out of this. This is between me and her. She is my wife. That makes it my concern. Percival stepped forward, his fists clenched. You do not love her. Everyone knows this marriage is a sham. Rowan's expression did not change, but his voice dropped, low and dangerous. What I feel for my wife is none of your concern, and if you ever speak to her like this again, you will regret it. Percival flinched. Seraphina stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Percival, why are you here? He looked at her, and for a moment she saw something desperate in his eyes. I made a mistake, he said, his voice breaking. I should not have ended our engagement. I thought I needed someone with money, connections. But I was wrong. I need you. Her stomach turned. No. Seraphina, please. No, she said again, louder this time. You do not need me. You need someone to fix your life, and I will not do that. I loved you. You did not, she interrupted, her voice shaking. You loved the idea of me. You loved what I could give you. But you never saw me. Not really. Percival stared at her, his face pale. You need to leave, Rowan said quietly. Percival did not move. You will regret this, Seraphina. He will hurt you. Men like him always do. Men like me? Rowan repeated, his voice soft and deadly. Percival took a step back. You do not care about her. You only married her to stop the gossip. I married her, Rowan said slowly, because she deserved better than you. The words hung in the air like a blade. Percival's face crumbled. He looked at Seraphina one last time, his eyes filled with something that might have been regret. Then he turned and walked out. The door closed behind him. Seraphina's knees went weak. Rowan caught her before she could fall, his arms strong and steady around her. You are safe, he murmured. He is gone. She pressed her face against his chest, her breath coming in short gasps. I was so afraid, she whispered. I know, but you were brave. I do not feel brave. You are. He pulled back slightly, looking down at her. You faced him. You stood your ground. That is courage, Seraphina. She looked up at him, her eyes wet with unshed tears. And then, without thinking, she reached up and touched his face. He froze. She traced the line of his jaw, feeling the roughness of stubble beneath her fingertips. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For protecting me. For believing me. His hand came up to cover hers, holding it against his cheek. "You never have to thank me for that." They stood there, frozen, staring at each other. And Serafina realized something terrifying. She was falling in love with him. She tried to ignore it, tried to tell herself it was gratitude, not love. But over the next few weeks, it became impossible to deny. She loved the way Rowan read to her in the evenings, his voice low and calm. She loved the way he asked about her day, genuinely interested in her answers. She loved the way he smiled, rare and soft, when she said something that amused him. She loved the way he looked at her, as if she were the only person in the world who mattered. But she did not tell him. How could she? He had married her out of duty and kindness, not love, and she would not burden him with feelings he did not want. So she kept them locked inside, hidden and aching. But Rowan noticed. He always noticed. One night, as they sat together by the fire, he set down his book and looked at her. "Serafina." She glanced up. "Yes?" "Are you happy here?" The question surprised her. "Yes. Why do you ask?" "Because you seem distant, as if something is troubling you." Her heart pounded. "I am fine." "You are lying." She looked away. "I do not want to burden you." "You could never be a burden." The words broke something inside her. She stood quickly, her hands trembling. "I need to go to bed. Good night." She turned toward the door. "Serafina, wait!" But she did not stop. She walked quickly through the house, her vision blurred with tears. She reached her room and closed the door, leaning against it. A moment later, a knock sounded. "Serafina." Rowan's voice was soft but firm. "Please, talk to me." "I cannot." "Why not?" "Because I am afraid." There was a long silence. Then he said, "May I come in?" She hesitated. Then she opened the door. Rowan stood in the hallway, his face shadowed but his eyes bright. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "What are you afraid of?" he asked gently. She looked down at her hands. "Of ruining this." "Ruining what?" "This, us, this arrangement. I do not want to ask for more than you can give." He stepped closer. "What do you want?" She shook her head. "It does not matter." "It matters to me." She looked up at him, her eyes burning. "You said this would be a marriage in name only, and I agreed. But Her voice broke. "I do not know how to keep that promise anymore." His breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," she whispered, "that I have fallen in love with you. And I know I should not have. I know that is not what you wanted. But I cannot help it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Rowan stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "Serafina," he said softly, "I have been in love with you since the night I met you." Her world stopped. "You... what?" "I fell in love with you the moment I saw you standing in that ballroom, alone and hurting, and still refusing to break." His voice was raw, shaking. "I married you because I could not bear the thought of walking away. And I've been lying to myself every day since, pretending I did not want more." She could not breathe. "You love me?" "Yes." "But you never said—" "Because I thought you did not want me," he whispered. "I thought you only agreed to this marriage because you had no other choice. I did not want to trap you with feelings you did not return." She laughed, a broken, tearful sound. "I thought the same thing." He smiled, his eyes wet. "We are both fools, then." "Yes." He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. She did not. He kissed her. It was soft, careful, and filled with 2 years of loneliness, fear, and hope. When he pulled back, she was crying. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you," he said. And for the first time in her life, Serafina believed it. The months that followed were the happiest of Serafina's life. She and Rowan were no longer strangers pretending to be married. They were partners, lovers, friends. They walked through the gardens together, hand in hand. They read to each other by the fire. They laughed, argued, and learned each other's rhythms. And slowly, Serafina began to feel like herself again. Not the woman she had been before her father died. Not the woman Percival had tried to shape her into. But someone new. Someone strong. Someone loved. One afternoon, as they sat together on a bench overlooking the hills, Rowan turned to her. "Serafina." She looked at him, smiling. "Yes? Do you remember what I said the night we met, when I told Percival I was your husband?" "Yes." He took her hand. "I know it was a lie then, but I want it to be true now, not just on paper, but in every way that matters." Her breath caught. "It already is." "I know, but I want to say it properly." He slid off the bench and knelt in front of her, his eyes bright and serious. "Serafina Blackwood, Duchess of Edinburgh, will you marry me?" Again. This time, not out of duty, not out of fear, but because we choose each other. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply. And as the sun set over Blackwood Hall, casting gold across the hills, Serafina realized something. She was no longer invisible. She was seen. She was loved. She was home. Years later, when people asked how she became the Duchess of Edinburgh, Serafina always smiled. She told them about the ballroom, about the man who had defended her when no one else would, about the cruel laughter of a man who had tried to humiliate her, not knowing he was mocking a duke. And she told them about the choice she made, to trust, to hope, to love. "Is this your husband?" Percival had asked, laughing at the man in servant's clothes. And though he had not known it then, the answer was yes. Rowan had always been her husband. From the moment he stood beside her, calm and unshakable, and said, "I am with Miss Claremont." From the moment he looked at her and said, "I see you." From the moment he offered her not a fairy tale, but a chance. And she had taken it. And it had changed everything.